Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Wednesday, November 10th. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Things are likely to change soon at the meetings of the County Board of Supervisors. This afternoon, the board approved changes to the rules of conduct for people giving testimony to the board. KPBS reporter John Carroll says what happened at a board meeting appears to have been the last straw.
The atmosphere at board meetings has been going downhill for a while now. Board Chair Nathan Fletcher says rude, disruptive behavior has been getting more common over the last couple of years. Then a few weeks ago, there was this. Hail Fauci! Hail Fauci! But what happened last week when the supervisors were discussing measures to prevent the spread of COVID, a man identifying himself as Jason Robo first indicated he'd like to see one of the supervisors hanging from a tree, said Nathan Fletcher should shoot himself, called Supervisor Vargas fat, and then turned his attention to County Public Health Officer Dr. Wilma Wooten, calling her an Aunt Jemima, a racist reference to a black woman who was a servant for a white family. That moment appears to be when Fletcher and Vice Chair Nora Vargas had enough.
It's time for us to revamp and relook at the rules around public procedures.
The board will consider a number of changes, most notably prohibiting disruptive conduct, things such as loud, threatening language, along with other disruptive, noisy behavior. The proposed changes also include a change in the amount of time individuals and people in group presentations can speak. Fletcher insists the proposed changes do not equate to denying anyone's freedom of speech.
Public comment will always remain a feature of local government. The ability of folks to come down and dissent and disagree will always remain a feature of local government.
But at a virtual meeting held today on the proposed changes, a number of callers disagreed with them, voicing various concerns.
These rules will turn board meetings into a modern version of the Gong Show. If you're old enough to remember what the Gong Show was, 2 minutes is short enough. There is absolutely no justification for reducing it to 1 minute.
But a number of callers also expressed support for the proposed changes.
We all have the right to agree or disagree, make suggestions, and show our support or dislikes. But if the sole purpose of making commentaries to disrupt our democratic process and wreak havoc, then one can only surmise that the intent is harmful and compromises public safety.
The measure passed 3-1, with Supervisor Joel Anderson casting the sole no vote. Supervisor Desmond is out of town. The new rules will go into effect immediately. John Carroll, KPBS News.
Oceanside's chief of police was put on the spot at a community meeting last night. Community members asked him to commit to a mandatory de-escalation policy. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne was there and tells us how the chief responded.
Oceanside's chief of police and his captains joined over 200 community members in a community meeting. The topic of discussion, the urgent need for a mandatory de-escalation policy for Oceanside Police.
That it is time for the Oceanside Police Department to adopt an enforceable de-escalation policy.
De-escalation training is an excellent resource for police officers. It helps them to protect themselves and the community.
The inability to act upon de-escalation practices has caused distrust.
Oceanside's current police de-escalation policy reads, when interacting with persons in crisis and situations in which the use of force is likely, and when feasible, officers should use de-escalation strategies. The word should does not make the policy mandatory. In San Diego and La Mesa's police de-escalation policies, it says de-escalation shall be used. Oceanside's chief of police, Fred Armijo, was put on the spot when he was asked one question.
Are you willing to change the de-escalation policy of the Oceanside Police Department?
To which he answered,
let me just be as direct as you deserve. The answer is yes, but I have a lot to say in advance of that. We've committed to change should to shall. And the way we onboard new policies in our department is we give a 30-day acclimation period before all right, it's now effective.
Community members are happy about the change, but say this conversation is only the beginning of many. Here's Max Disposti, the executive director for the North County LGBTQ Resource Center.
If someone doesn't follow those policies, what's going to happen? Where is the accountability? Where is the transparency about the process? And I think that's why we need more work, because this is a great step, a great beginning, but there is more to it.
Armijo says the change will go into effect in 30 days, and police officers will need to pass a written test on the new policy changes. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
From the grocery stores to car dealerships, prices are surging. Historic inflation is hitting the nation, and the pandemic and the supply chain backup is being blamed. Karen Kaifa with a look ahead at the impact on everything from holiday meals to gifts to travel.
Up and away. The Labor Department says prices for consumer goods and services kept climbing in October, another 0.9% for the month and 6.2% over the last year, the biggest year-over-year surge since November of 1990. Pushing overall numbers higher, meat, poultry, fish, and eggs altogether up 1.7% in October and up 11.9% over last year. Used car prices up 2.5% during the month and 26.4% for the year. And energy prices, including gasoline, up 4.8% in October and 30% over last year, a concern ahead of winter.
Families for the last several months have been spending more money for gasoline, and now these home heating prices are added to that.
President Joe Biden said reversing the inflation trend is, quote, a top priority. And top economic officials argue it's a temporary consequence of the pandemic economy, as a rapid rise in demand meets a shortage of raw materials and supply chain bottlenecks.
We all have to be just a little bit patient because we are seeing that the action we are taking is working. We just have to stick with it, long enough to solve the problem.
Another report from the Labor Department said an increase in average hourly wages in October was outpaced by price hikes as Americans plan their holiday spending. In Washington, Karen Kaifa, KPBS News.
A new report out tonight says look out for a rise in rent. The USC economic forecast predicts a sharp increase across the Southern California region that includes San Diego County. One estimate shows by the end of the third quarter in 2023, rents in some areas of our county will see a jump from the current average of $2,144 a month to $2,492. Experts say COVID caused a large-scale movement out of the inner cities to the suburbs, resulting in low supply. San Diego County also has a rental market with vacancy rates at 1.56%, which the report says will spur the triple-digit rent hikes. A new training facility for first responders opened in the South Bay today. KPBS reporter Melissa May shows us how a driving track will help emergency responders be safer on the road.
First responders spend more time driving than any other task, and the new Sheriff's Emergency Vehicle Operations Center will provide them with a facility to learn how to safely operate their emergency vehicles.
Most of us and most of our cadets coming into the academy, the only foundational training they have in driving is what they learned from their parents. And a lot of people Uber and Lyft nowadays, so they don't have the skill set that they need to be able to do emergency driving.
Kelly Martinez is the undersheriff for San Diego County. She said this facility is a major upgrade from the old training facility at the former Qualcomm Stadium parking lot. California mandates training for first responders who operate emergency vehicles.
So to be able to drive a car quickly, go around obstacles, avoid collisions, those are all important skills, and that's what people are really going to be learning here.
Construction on the $32 million project began in October 2020, creating nearly 300 jobs. It was a group effort between the county supervisors, sheriff's department, and the San Diego Community College District.
The Community College District is an integral part of getting this track built and also in the training, because they're the ones who help us with the instruction and all of the things that we need to be able to get people trained up.
have the opportunity to develop those skills right from the get-go, not just later in their career, but now. And two, it gives us an opportunity to recruit people from the outside. You know, any kind of educational facility, when you have state-of-the-art facilities available for training, it makes you more attractive than other facilities.
Wes Lundberg is the president of Miramar College, the home of the regional police, sheriff, and fire department academies.
In a real-life situation, there could be people on the sidewalk, there could be, you know, any number of folks, other vehicles on the road, so they get a chance to hone their skills, really get to know how a vehicle responds, how they can handle it, and so that when they're out there in real life, they're able to know how to handle the vehicle in a very safe way.
Miramar College trains about 500 cadets a year, and this 40-acre state-of-the-art facility will train them in several state-required standards.
Different kinds of road situations, parking situations, city block versus freeway conditions, parking lots, all of those kinds of things are replicated right here.
Both large and small emergency vehicles can utilize the center and can also be used for teen driving safety programs. Melissa May, KPBS News.
As the effort to vaccinate children ages 5 to 11 ramps up, a well-known pediatrician group says COVID-19 cases in kids are once again climbing. Mandy Gaither has a look at the latest numbers.
Across the U.S., nearly 1 million children ages 5 to 11 are expected to have rolled up their sleeves by the end of the day, getting the first dose of protection against COVID-19.
I think that the parents who have gotten vaccinated themselves are probably going to take their children to be vaccinated, and they should.
But as the effort to vaccinate younger children ramps up, there's another number inching back up as well. This past week, the American Academy of Pediatrics says there's a 6% increase in new COVID-19 cases in children from the week before. Kids still account for about a quarter of all cases in the U.S., while some schools are getting rid of mask requirements.
There's a storm in the horizon, and it's coming over. Yes, I think it's too soon to lift mandates for masks, especially in children at this point.
Meanwhile, a new poll shows 78% of Americans aren't sure or believe some aspect of COVID-19 misinformation. Of those surveyed, 38% believe the government is exaggerating the number of COVID-19 deaths by counting deaths from other factors. And a third of adults polled believe or are unsure if COVID-19 vaccines cause infertility. Experts and public health officials are united in saying there's no evidence that vaccines impact fertility. For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
After 20 months of COVID travel restrictions, non-essential travelers can finally cross the U.S.-Mexico border. This is particularly welcome news to San Ysidro businesses who make most of their money from Mexican customers. KPBS border reporter Gustavo Solis tells us what the reopening means to San Ysidro.
San Diego's COVID recovery is in full swing. Bars and restaurants have been packed on weekends, and tourists are coming back to beachfront hotels. But in San Ysidro, it's been a different story. Sure, the state COVID protocols were lifted, but not the one that matters most. Cross-border travel restrictions still kept Tijuana shoppers away from San Ysidro stores. Jason Wells is the CEO of the San Ysidro Chamber of Commerce. He has a funny way of explaining what San Ysidro has been going through.
This is how I explain San Ysidro. It's as if the governor had told Little Italy, you could reopen, go back to your normal lives. And then the president of the United States came in and said, but the only people that can shop and eat in Little Italy are those that live in Little Italy. They wouldn't have survived, and we barely have.
Wells says the restrictions are inherently unfair. They protect large corporations at the expense of small businesses. That's because truckers and workers have been able to cross no problem, but shoppers haven't.
The low-hanging fruit were tourist visas. And unfortunately, in binational communities, that's what we depend on for our living and our quality of life, I will say, because of our family members that could or could not cross.
San Diego Councilwoman Vivian Moreno agrees. She represents San Ysidro and sees this as an equity issue.
Border communities have long been disproportionately impacted by the closure of the San Ysidro port of entry, the biggest port of entry crossing of the world. Border closures devastated the small businesses in San Ysidro, depleted the regional economy in San Diego, and weakened the tourism industry's ability to make a comeback.
The numbers speak for themselves.
The San Ysidro Chamber of Commerce reports that since 2020, $1 billion in retail sales have been lost. Over 2,000 people lost their jobs. And over 200 businesses had to close permanently here in San Ysidro.
Olivia Campos owns Caroline Shoes. When the border opened Monday, she opened an hour early and even put goodie bags together for customers she hadn't seen in 20 months. But on day one, the border reopening didn't live up to the hype. We expected to see more people, she says. One theory behind the low numbers is long border wait times, or at least the fear of them. It only took about 15 minutes for people to walk across the border on Monday morning, but Customs and Border Protection told the public to expect longer wait times because of the reopening. So maybe people stayed home Monday to see how things play out. Kenya Samarripa is the Executive Director of International Business Affairs for the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce. Even with ongoing concerns over border wait times, reopening the border is a net positive, she says.
This is great news, especially for South County. Even with the border wait times, this is a new opportunity for them to reconnect with their consumer base, reconnect with their cross-border workers, and at least keep that sort of flow of tourism injected into the San Diego economy.
We've been waiting a very long time for this day. This is a great day for Tijuana, for San Diego, for our binational region. Let's give it up for reopening.
That was San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria. He joined dozens of politicians and political leaders from both sides of the border to celebrate the reopening. They spent months trying to convince Washington, D.C. to lift the ban. One ray of hope from this whole ordeal is that local leaders now have a roadmap of how to get the federal government to care about border issues.
What we have done today should be a template going forward to drive positive change in this border region. You'll know that for the last 5+ years, it seems as though the border is something bad. Everyone up here knows the border is an asset in Tijuana, in San Diego, in Baja California, and in California. This is a difference maker. It gives us an edge in the global economy. It improves our quality of life. It makes us a better region.
Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
A big honor announced today for our border region. San Diego and Tijuana have been selected as the 2024 World Design Capital in a first ever winning binational bid. In a press release, Mayor Todd Gloria's office says it is the result of a multi-year effort to showcase San Diego and Tijuana's design-driven, innovative culture and economy. It showed how the region uses human-centered design to address climate change and social inequity through engineering, science, art, and architecture. The longest war our country has fought ended 2 months ago when troops pulled out of Afghanistan. But resettling thousands of Afghan refugees in the U.S. can be a complex process. This week, the Department of Homeland Security announced a new way to streamline the process. They will waive fees that are charged in the application process for things like green cards and work permits. Those fees can be hefty, in some cases adding up to $1,000 per person. The San Diego-based Afghan EVAC Coalition says it's not enough.
But it is what DHS could do to help lessen the burden for the folks here at home. It's $575, plus you've got to get yourself out of the country, plus you've got to make sure that your family's safe and secure.
Any Afghan nationals that come into the country on or after July 30th are eligible to be exempt from the fees. Where to draw the lines? The city of San Diego is getting closer to a new map of city council districts. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen takes a closer look.
One of the biggest questions facing the city's redistricting commission is what to do with UC San Diego. A number of students here say they want to be separated from La Jolla and drawn into a district with University City, Sorrento Valley, and Mira Mesa. They say they share common interests with those neighborhoods.
People drawing lines cannot intentionally or unintentionally create maps that dilute the voting power of racial, ethnic, or language minorities.
Jen LaBarbera is Education and Advocacy Manager at San Diego Pride, one of more than 30 community organizations that support this map of council districts. They say it satisfies a number of concerns, reuniting neighborhoods that are currently split into 2 or more districts, and creating more districts that empower people of color.
4 of our 9 districts are majority people of color, if you combine Black, Asian, and Latinx voters, and with one of our districts being about 50-50. So as our region continues to grow more and more diverse, we expect that that district would actually go up over the 50% mark, which would give us 5 different majority-minority districts.
The Redistricting Commission last night asked for a demographic analysis of the community-drawn map, plus this map drawn by the Commission's chair. It would keep the districts a lot closer to how they look now. But neighborhoods like Claremont and Rancho Penasquitos would not be united into one district, like many residents there want. Still, Commissioner Fred Cosmo of Point Loma says the alternative would dilute the voting power of coastal communities.
I continue to believe that the collaboration map disenfranchises hundreds of thousands of people from districts 1 and 2 and 7 and 5 and pulls together enormous communities of interest. But I'll look at all the maps in a fair light.
LaBarbara disagrees.
The communities of color, the usually lower income communities around the rest of the city, have always been disenfranchised every single redistricting process. And so, maybe it's time for those white affluent voters on the coast to also, kind of share that burden a little bit more fairly of all of the changes that come about in redistricting.
The Redistricting Commission will meet again on Saturday and try to strike a compromise. After that meeting, it will hold at least 5 more meetings to get more input before settling on a final map in mid-December. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
We have Santa Ana set up for the next several days with high pressure locked in the interior sections, offshore flow. That means mild temperatures ahead, with a little bit of an elevated risk for wildfire danger, so we'll watch that with some breezy conditions, and then a little bit of a cooling trend as we head into next week. You'll likely start to see that for the later part of the weekend, but it'll be a little bit more apparent as we start off the next work week. Temperatures for tonight getting down to 51 for you in Oceanside, 54 in Escondido, 59 for you in San Diego, and upper 50s out towards Borrego Springs too. Then offshore flow continues for our Thursday, seasonably to slightly above normal for most, but again, near the coast here from Los Angeles down towards San Diego, that's where the real warmth is going to be locked in here for our Thursday. Temperatures getting up into the low 80s in San Diego, El Cajon 90s for you, Escondido getting up to 91 too, Borrego Springs upper 80s, Mount Laguna low 60s. Friday continuing to see that warmth here, a little bit of a breezy day again for southern parts of California with elevated fire danger, but it should kind of weaken as we head into the weekend with winds becoming a little bit calmer here. Near the coast, temperatures will go from the low 80s on your Thursday, Friday, Saturday, back into the 70s on Sunday and mid 70s as we look ahead to the start of the next work week. Further inland, similar trend here, temperatures in the low 90s dropping into the 80s on Sunday, mid 80s as we head towards next Monday with plenty of sunshine as we move forward. In the mountains, not seeing much in the way of change. Again, it's mainly going to be for coastal areas and slightly inland. In the mountains, we're just hovering in the low 60s over the next 5 days. A little bit of a breezy couple of days there Thursday and Friday, but after that, it's just plenty of sunshine that's in the forecast. And in the deserts, we're hovering in the upper 80s and low 90s. No major changes on the way here. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Jessica Pash.
San Diego Unified's newest elementary school will be named in honor of the indigenous people who first lived on the land where it is built. The Board of Education unanimously approved the name of the Mission Valley School as Nipiquay Elementary. It's named after a village that existed along the San Diego River long before Spanish colonization. The school will open in fall 2022. And tonight, the County Public Defender's Office has named the 25 most remarkable teens in San Diego. There is an award ceremony happening at this hour to honor teenagers who have defied odds and made major accomplishments. KPBS education reporter MG Perez introduces us to a couple of the students who many see as heroes.
2 years ago this week, 18-year-old Aiden Hallinan was ready to kill himself.
And at that point, I just said, you know what, I don't want to do this fight anymore. I'm just done with it. I'm done with it all. I've made up my mind, and this is what I want to do. And so that's what I ended up trying to do.
I spent a total of 24 days and 15 nights in the care of the hospital.
Aiden is a suicide survivor. He got help for his depression and used the darkness to create light for himself and many other young people. He produced this video message telling his story and his solution with support from his best friend, his father, and his beloved dog Hobbs.
I was completely hopeless, but then I got a little bit of hope, and that pushed me through, and that's why I'm still here today.
Aiden also started a movement called Hope Spark, first on Instagram and now spreading online everywhere. He is one of the 25 most remarkable teens in San Diego, named by the San Diego County Public Defender's Office in partnership with the San Diego Public Library. These teens are being honored for their accomplishments in areas that include LGBTQ activism, inventions, performing arts, and leadership. 17-year-old Ilan Jinich directed and produced this short documentary on injustice at the Mexican border. He says communities like San Isidro suffer from higher than normal rates of asthma, and he calls it environmental racism.
Whether it be pollution, things like that do with the environment, and that's directly affecting them because of decisions made by the government.
It's a tough time for young people, and they are persevering, and our Remarkable Teens program, I think, shows that they are.
Aiden has one more thing to say.
And I want you to remember you are seen, heard, and so loved.
MG Perez, KPBS News.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.